Maria's walking stick arrived unannounced, some fancy carved thing with a moose head, left on her Vancouver porch like a dare. 52 years old, fresh off a hip replacement, and now this. She snorted. Only in Mount Pleasant would neighbors solve noise complaints by launching a walk club. But that stick lit a fire under her. Next morning, she limped past community center flyers, leading a ragtag crew of ex-complainers down cherry blossom streets. Each step hammered out grudges like pavement cracks. By week's end, even Maria had never been one for fussy gifts, yet that walking stick, mahogany smooth, hummingbird etched near its grip, felt like a nudge from fate. Arthritis had started whispering in her knees, but admitting it meant surrendering to her mother's fate, a life shrunk to four walls, haunted by creaking floorboards and what-ifs. Vancouver's drizzle clung to her jacket as she tested stick on her block's uneven pavement. One clumsy step, then another. Kids' chalk rainbows blurred underfoot, someone's wind chimes tinkled like piano her ex-husband sold years ago. That sound still hooked her ribs, not regret, just ache of things unresolved. By week's end, she'd circled block daily, nodding dog walkers, side-eyeing Mr. Nguyen's overgrown hedge, a battleground for his feud with retired postal worker next door. Inspiration struck during Aquafit Community Center. What if walks weren't just for steps but stories? Her Stroll and Solve club began with 3 neighbors and a thermos of chai. Maria led them past disputed fences, pausing where lilacs spilled onto sidewalks. Beauty's better shared, she'd muse, thumping her stick lightly, a rhythm syncopated with her heartbeat. Stick, she realized, was like her late abuela's rolling pin, meant for moving forward, leaving grooves of connection. When Mr. Nguyen finally trimmed hedge, he left a jar of candied ginger on Maria's stoop. She grinned, pocketing it for next week's walk. Fear, she decided, was just untied laces, trip you if you don't bend to fix 'em. 52, she'd rather stumble toward lit moments than stand perfectly still. Creator hadn't expected a walking stick to change her life, but there it was, smooth mahogany, carved with winding ivy, leaning against her porch like a silent invitation. 52, she'd spent years nodding politely over fences, ignoring simmering tensions between neighbors. Vancouver's rain had a way of keeping folks indoors, grievances tucked away like damp socks. But that stick. It refused to gather dust. First time she took it out, she nearly face-planted on a rogue acorn, graceful as a newborn giraffe, as her daughter would say. Still, something about moving forward, step by step, loosened knots in her chest. Soon, she was pacing laps around her block, nodding familiar faces, catching snippets of frustration, barking dogs, overgrown hedges, parking space wars. A wild idea struck her: what if people walked together instead of grumbling apart? She tacked a flyer onto community center bulletin board, Neighborhood Walk Club. Slowpokes welcome. Next morning, 3 women showed up, a retired teacher, a young mom with a double stroller, and a gardener clutching herbal tea like a lifeline. By week's end, their ragtag crew had doubled. Maria's stick became a baton, passed to whoever needed steadiness that day. Then came Mrs. Kowalski, whose prize roses kept getting trampled by Johnson's terrier. Instead of another passive-aggressive note, Creator handed her stick. Walk with us. Bring Johnson's. Reluctantly, they came. Feet moving, words flowed easier. By mile 2, compromises bloomed, a shared dog-walking schedule, rosebush fencing. Maria's stick wasn't just support, it was a bridge. Rain or shine, their group grew, resolving disputes one stride at a time, a lit alternative to lawyers or silent treatments. Even city council took notice, funding walking paths lined with benches for mediation breaks. Years later, long after ivy had worn grooves into mahogany, Maria would chuckle how a stumble had sparked a movement. Some gifts arrive unannounced, after all. Others? You've got to walk them home. Maria had never considered herself a leader, let alone someone who'd rally neighbors over something as simple as walking. Yet here she was, gripping that absurdly ornate walking stick, gifted by who knows who, like a scepter of reluctant authority. Vancouver's drizzle clung to her windbreaker as she paced her porch, rehearsing excuses to cancel first neighborhood walk. Too cold. Too early. Too much. But beneath doubt hummed a stubborn itch. She'd seen how side-eyes over fence lines festered into silent wars about recycling bins and parking spots. If gossip could spread like mildew in this coastal air, why not something lighter? Community center bulletin boards became her battleground. She slapped up neon flyers with a smirk, "Walk off your gripes," literally, then bolted before anyone could ask questions. Morning of, only 3 showed up. A retiree with a vendetta against leaf blowers, a young mom clutching a latte like a shield, and a teen in earbuds who clearly took a wrong turn. Maria's stomach dropped. This was not intergenerational bonding moment she'd imagined. But feet moved. So did grudges. By third lap around block, leaf blower guy admitted he'd never actually talked to landscaper he'd been cursing under his breath. Mom confessed her sleep-deprived rage upstairs tap dancer was really about missing her pre-baby spontaneity. Even teen tugged out an earbud to mutter about his math tutor's whack playlist. Maria's stick, now nicknamed Peace Poker, tapped rhythm against pavement, punctuating absurdity of it all. Who knew conflict resolution could be this lit? Weeks in, club's unspoken rule crystallized: no venting unless you're moving forward. Literally. Maria, ever accidental philosopher, marveled how sidewalks became neutral ground where age gaps and grids dissolved into shared huffs up hills. She still tripped over her own doubts. What if someone actually hated her, but stick stayed planted? A reminder that even shaky steps could carve paths. By summer, their ragtag parade had swelled to 20-odd souls, including one survived tap dancer who, it turned out, taught killer salsa. Maria, now 53 and slightly less skeptical of her own ideas, caught herself grinning sight of her peace poker propped in community center's umbrella stand. No magic in it, just wood. But sometimes all a neighborhood needed was something to lean on. She had never been one for grand gestures, but that walking stick changed everything. Its smooth mahogany surface, carved with intricate vines, felt like destiny nudging her forward. Vancouver's misty mornings had always been hers alone, but now she imagined footsteps behind her, neighbors who barely nodded hello, strangers tangled in petty squabbles over fence lines or barking dogs. What if a walk could untangle those knots? She started small, tacking handwritten flyers to community center bulletin boards: "Walk and talk it out, no drama, just sneakers." A few eye rolls followed. One skeptic, a retired mechanic named Ray, muttered about hippie nonsense loud enough for her to hear. Creator just grinned, tapping that stick against pavement like a metronome. Let them talk. First meeting, only 3 showed up. Second time, 6. By week 3, a dozen folks trailed behind her, their chatter rising like steam off wet sidewalks. Creator led them past disputed flower beds and shared alleyways, her stick pointing out solutions with playful authority. "See how Mrs. Chen's roses spill onto Patel's side. Maybe they're just hugging." Laughter loosened tensions. Ray lagged back, arms crossed, but his scowl had cracks. Then came Twist, a local journalist, sipping coffee outside a cafe, snapped a shot of she mid-stride, stick raised like a conductor's baton as group erupted in cheers over some silly joke about squirrel diplomacy. Next morning, her face lit up social media, stick together trending, comments flooding in from folks in Toronto, Seattle, even a grandma in Florida pledging to start her own squad. Maria's phone buzzed non-stop. Community centers called, asking for workshops. Standing before a packed room weeks later, she caught Ray's eye in crowd. No scoff, just a slow nod. Her chest tightened. "I finally belong here." That stick, once just a curious gift, now bore weight of countless steps towards something bigger. Maria winked her audience, nudging a fallen name tag with tip. "All right, who's ready to walk off their grumbles?" Roar that followed could have shaken maple leaves from trees. Not bad for a 52-year-old who'd once hesitated to knock on a neighbor's door. Maria's walking stick became her secret weapon, not for hiking but for healing. That fancy carved thing, a gift from who knows where, tapped its way into her Vancouver neighborhood's rhythm. 52, she'd never fancied herself a leader, but here she was, guiding a ragtag walk club past hedges where neighbors once glared. Monday evenings, they'd meet by community center, mismatched sneakers and all. Maria's stick, now nicknamed Peace Poke, tapped out disputes like a metronome. Mrs. Leong and Mr. O'Reilly, feuding over rosebushes, found common ground counting sidewalk cracks. Teenagers, once glued to screens, started pointing out cherry blossoms instead of property lines. Even local barista joined, doling out oat milk lattes as truce tokens. Odd habits sprouted. A retired librarian began charting their routes like treasure maps. A yoga instructor balanced coffee cups on her head for mindfulness. Maria's stick, once just wood, became a baton passing connection down block. By summer their walks were lit, not with fireworks, but with shared stories and snapped photos of stubborn dandelions pushing through concrete. One evening, Maria paused where two fences nearly touched. She wedged her stick between them, grinning as group held their breath. Gaps, she said, are just invitations to step closer. Lace up those sneakers, your street's waiting.